The content presented in this documentary is for educational and historical analysis only. It is not an endorsement of any criminal activity or organization. Viewer discretion is advised.
27-year-old Mikhail Drachev has been wanted for his role in the murder of a police informant.
And his ties to the Russian Mafia.
A growing threat to our security, international organized crime.
In a world of shadows, there is a code, written not in law but on skin, a language of honor among thieves, and a promise of violence. It is an empire, but you won't find it on any map. Its borders are drawn in corruption, its currency is fear, and its capital is the internet. It was born in the frozen hell of Stalin's labor camps, forged in the bloody anarchy of the 1990s, and now operates from sleek anonymous office towers. They control energy markets, banks, and governments. They are phantom hands on the levers of global power. They are the architects of a new world disorder. They are bankers and assassins, hackers and thieves, bound by an oath that dates back a century. They are the Bratva, the Russian Mafia, and this is the story of how a brotherhood of criminals, born behind bars, came to wield power that challenges nations. To understand the monster, you must first visit its birthplace. Not a city, not a country, but a system designed to break the human spirit. Our story does not begin with lavish suits or bloody gang wars on the streets of Moscow. It begins in the frozen, unforgiving silence of the Soviet Gulag, a network of labor camps so vast and brutal, it formed a hidden archipelago within the USSR. Here, in this world of barbed wire, forced labor, and sub-zero temperatures, a counter-society was forged. A society with its own laws, its own rulers, and its own brutal code of honor. This was the crucible that gave birth to the most sophisticated and resilient criminal organization in modern history, the Bratva. The Gulag Crucible. Imagine the landscape, thousands of miles from civilization. Timber mills and mines operated by men sentenced to decades for political dissent, petty crime, or simply being in the wrong place at the wrong time. The Soviet state was the absolute enemy, the mentee or police, the oppressors. In opposition to this oppressive force, a new hierarchy emerged from within the prisoner population. At its apex stood the most respected and feared class, the professional criminals, the Orki. They were thieves, bandits and outlaws who refused to work for the state, surviving instead through theft, intimidation, and their own strict social order. They saw themselves not as mere criminals, but as the only true free men in a universe of slaves and masters. This ideological stance, this absolute rejection of the state's authority, was the seed from which the Bratva would grow. The code, Vorovskoy Zakon. But chaos could not sustain an empire. Order was needed, and order came in the form of a strict, unbreakable code, the Vorovskoy Zakon, the thieves' law. Adherence to this code was what separated a common convict from a Vorovskoy Zakon, a thief in law. This was not a suggestion. It was a sacred oath. The code was absolute. First, and most importantly, no cooperation with the state, ever. A true Vor would rather die than become an informant. Second, no family. A thief could have lovers, but never a wife or children. Attachments made you vulnerable. Your only family was your criminal brethren. Third, impartial judgment. A Vor was expected to settle disputes among other criminals fairly, without favoritism. And fourth, share all resources. A Vor was required to support the criminal community, using his illicit gains to help other thieves in need, bribe officials, and fund the common cause. The language of skin tattoos. This code was not just spoken, it was etched into their very flesh. Their bodies became living manuscripts, a visual language that declared their status, their crimes, their beliefs, and their life story to those who could read it. Cathedrals on the chest symbolized a seasoned thief who never collaborated. Epaulets on the shoulders indicated rank and authority. A skull piercing a star on the knee meant, "I will never kneel before the authorities." A dagger through a neck tattoo meant the wearer was a convicted murderer. Every image, every dot, every line was a badge of honor and a warning. To wear these tattoos was to be marked for life, forever separate from the ordinary world. It was a permanent commitment to the life of a Vor. The Bitch Wars. This rigid system was shattered by World War II. In a desperate move, Stalin offered freedom to prisoners who would fight on the front lines. Many accepted. To the pure Vors back in the camps, these men were traitors, suki, or bitches, for collaborating with the state. When the war ended and these soldiers were inevitably thrown back into the Gulags, hell followed with them. The camps erupted into the infamous Bitch Wars, a bloody civil war between the traditionalist Vors and the Suki. It was a conflict, fought with shivs, clubs, and sheer brutality. This war fundamentally changed the criminal world. It shattered the old, romanticized ideals and introduced a new, ruthless pragmatism. Survival, not just ideology, became the ultimate goal. The foundation is laid. The Bitch Wars ended, but the landscape was forever changed. The survivors were harder, more cynical, and more organized than ever before. They had learned to operate with military efficiency and absolute ruthlessness. The code had been tested in fire and blood, and a new, more adaptable breed of criminal master had emerged. They waited patiently within the decaying Soviet system, understanding its corrupt mechanisms intimately. The foundation was laid, the blueprint was drawn. All they needed was for the walls to finally come down. And when they did, the thieves would be ready to inherit everything. The conclusion. So, what was truly born in the frozen silence of the Gulags? It was more than a gang. It was a philosophy, a state of mind engineered for survival against overwhelming oppression. The Vorovskoy Zakon emerged as a sworn brotherhood, a dark mirror to the state that created them. They built their own nation within a nation, governed by the unbreakable Vorovskoy Zakon, a code that provided order, identity, and a perverse sense of honor where the state offered only brutality. This code was their constitution, and their tattooed skin its sacred text. But this society was not born in peace. It was tempered in the fire of the Bitch Wars, a bloody conflict that burned away any remaining weakness. The romanticized outlaw was replaced by the hardened survivor. The lesson was clear. Pure ideology was a luxury. Pragmatism and ruthless adaptability were necessities for survival. The survivors of this schism were not just criminals. They were strategists who had learned to navigate extreme violence, manage complex hierarchies, and exploit division. They understood power not as an abstract concept, but as a tangible tool to be wielded with absolute precision. The Gulags, in their immense cruelty, had inadvertently created the perfect incubator for a criminal elite. As the Soviet Union lumbered on, this new breed of Vor remained contained, operating in the underworld's shadows and the prison system's depths. Yet, they were learning. They studied the corrupt mechanics of the state from the inside, identifying its pressure points and weaknesses. They mastered the art of coercion, the power of patronage, and the silent language of intimidation. They were a sleeping giant, waiting in the wings of history. No longer just rebels against the system, but a parallel system, poised and ready. They had the code, the structure, and the ruthless will to power. All they lacked was opportunity, and then the world changed. The Iron Curtain fell. The Soviet Empire collapsed into chaos. And as the old order crumbled into dust, the heirs to the Gulag were ready to step out of the shadows and into the void. They were no longer just thieves. In law, they were about to become an empire. That wraps up the story of the Bratva's origins. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss upcoming episodes exploring the Bratva and other fascinating criminal organizations. Drop a like if you found it compelling, and let me know in the comments which topic you'd like me to uncover next.